The room went silent before the first note even played. Inside a small independent record store in downtown Los Angeles, fans leaned closer to the speakers, phones lowered, conversations cut short. When the opening track of The Romantic finally poured through the room, it felt less like a preview and more like a statement. After nearly a decade away from a solo studio album, Bruno Mars had returned, and he wasn't easing back in quietly. The nationwide listening parties tied to the release of The Romantic have quickly become more than promotional events. They are cultural checkpoints, organized in partnership with independent record stores and timed alongside his role as global ambassador for Record Store Day. The gatherings offered fans early access to the album ahead of its official February 27, 2026 release. But beyond the exclusive merch and vinyl pre-orders, the events signal something bigger. Bruno Mars is reasserting his place at the center of American pop music. For many fans, the return feels long overdue. Bruno Mars, born Peter Gene Hernandez in Honolulu, Hawaii, built one of the most consistent hit-making runs of the 2010s. From the emotional punch of Just the Way You Are to the funk revival energy of 24K Magic, he combined classic showmanship with radio precision. His catalog helped define an era when pop, R&B, funk, and hip-hop blurred into one cohesive mainstream sound. Over the course of his career, Bruno Mars has amassed multiple Grammy Awards, headlined Super Bowl halftime shows, and sold out arenas across the globe. Yet what makes his trajectory unusual is not just the trophies, it's the discipline. Industry insiders frequently describe him as meticulous, a perfectionist who obsesses over snare sounds, background harmonies, and live band arrangements long after others would call it finished. That meticulousness was evident again in the rollout of The Romantic. According to producers close to the project, the album went through several creative reinventions before Mars felt it was ready. One engineer who worked on the record described late-night studio sessions that stretched until sunrise. "He doesn't leave until it feels timeless," the engineer said. "Not trendy, timeless." That word, timeless, follows Bruno Mars everywhere. At a moment when streaming algorithms reward speed and volume, he operates differently. He disappears, then he returns with a fully formed vision. In an industry that often moves at viral speed, that patience has become a brand in itself. Music critic Jonathan Reynolds of Rolling Stone recently noted, "Bruno Mars understands something many pop stars forget. Nostalgia only works if you elevate it. He doesn't imitate the past, he refines it." That philosophy is embedded deeply in The Romantic, an album that reportedly leans heavily into live instrumentation, layered harmonies, and emotionally direct songwriting. The listening parties offered the first proof. Fans described lush ballads reminiscent of vintage soul alongside uptempo grooves that echo the swagger of 1970s funk. Yet nothing feels dated. The production is sharp, the hooks are immediate, and at the center is that unmistakable voice, elastic, controlled, and capable of sliding from falsetto vulnerability to rhythmic punch within a single verse. Bruno Mars first captured mainstream attention as a featured vocalist and songwriter, co-writing hits before stepping fully into the spotlight. His early collaborations showed his knack for melody construction and cross-genre appeal. When he transitioned to solo stardom, he brought that behind-the-scenes discipline with him. That foundation still shapes his work today. Producers who have collaborated with him say he studies performance footage of legends for hours. He analyzes stage lighting. He rehearses choreography relentlessly. "He treats every show like it's the Super Bowl," said a touring band member who has worked with Mars for years. "There are no shortcuts." That mindset helped cement his influence across American pop culture. Bruno Mars revived the prominence of live bands in pop touring. At a time when many artists relied heavily on backing tracks, he built a tight ensemble that performed with real-time energy. His concerts became known for precision horn sections, synchronized dance breaks, and a throwback Vegas flair, without irony. Culturally, his impact reaches beyond chart numbers. He has become a reference point for younger performers seeking to merge old-school showmanship with modern production. Artists across pop and R&B cite him as proof that musicianship still matters in a digital era. The release strategy for The Romantic also speaks to his broader influence. By aligning with independent record stores through Record Store Day, Bruno Mars is reinforcing the value of physical music experiences in a streaming-dominated market. The listening parties created communal anticipation, something increasingly rare in a world of midnight digital drops. Store owners across the country reported packed rooms. In New York, Chicago, and Los Angeles, fans lined up hours before doors opened. Many described the atmosphere as intimate and nostalgic. No elaborate stage, no LED screens, just speakers, vinyl sleeves, and shared excitement. "It reminds people that music can still be an event," said Marcus Hall, owner of a Brooklyn record shop that hosted one of the gatherings. "Bruno Mars didn't have to do this, he could just drop it online and break streaming records, but this feels personal." Behind the scenes, sources say the album's themes reflect a period of introspection. While Mars has long guarded his private life, those close to him suggest that the extended gap between solo releases allowed for personal recalibration. Fame, global touring, and constant scrutiny can create distance. The new material, insiders say, narrows that gap. That emotional transparency could mark a new chapter. In previous albums, Bruno Mars often leaned into charisma and playful bravado. On the romantic, early listeners describe lyrics that are more reflective, exploring commitment, vulnerability, and the tension between public persona and private self. "Artists evolve," said music journalist Carla Jennings. "The challenge is evolving without losing what made people fall in love with you." Bruno Mars seems to understand that balance. Commercially, expectations are enormous. Industry analysts predict strong first-week numbers, bolstered by vinyl sales and pre-orders from the listening party circuit. But even beyond sales projections, the album's arrival resets a conversation about longevity in pop music. Few artists from the early 2010s remain as consistently relevant. Trends have shifted toward minimalism, hyperpop experimentation, and genre fragmentation. Yet Bruno Mars occupies a rare lane. He bridges generational gaps. Parents recognize his influences. Younger fans embrace his polish. There is also the performance question. Insiders hint at a major tour announcement in the coming months. If history is any guide, those shows will blend tight choreography, live instrumentation, and cinematic packing. His previous tour redefined production standards, and expectations for the next chapter are sky-high. For YouTube audiences in particular, Bruno Mars represents more than chart statistics. His live clips routinely rack up millions of views, driven by shareable performance moments and replay value. In a digital ecosystem fueled by clips and reactions, he remains uniquely watchable. Still, the road to this moment was not inevitable. Early in his career, industry executives reportedly questioned whether his retro influences would connect with younger audiences. He proved them wrong by modernizing those sounds without diluting their essence. That balancing act became his signature. The listening parties for the romantic feel like both a celebration and a test. A celebration of a catalog that already shaped a decade, and a test of whether Bruno Mars can once again steer the direction of mainstream pop. As the final track faded during one Los Angeles event, applause broke out spontaneously. It wasn't a concert. There was no encore, yet the reaction felt earned. For many in the room, the wait had been long. The return felt deliberate. In an era obsessed with constant output, Bruno Mars chose absence over oversaturation. He chose craftsmanship over speed. And now, with the romantic, he is stepping back into the spotlight on his own terms. The future remains unwritten, but if history offers any indication, Bruno Mars does not reemerge casually. He arrives with intention, with polish, with a sense of occasion. Whether through vinyl crackle in a neighborhood record shop or through the global reach of streaming platforms, his music continues to command attention. As the industry recalibrates around him once again, one thing feels clear: Bruno Mars is not chasing trends, he is building legacy. And in doing so, he reminds American pop culture that timelessness is still the ultimate hit.